So, Yngwie, the first question, I guess, is your big life-changing moment. You're a kid in Stockholm and you see a documentary on Jimi Hendrix.
It was actually the news. And they didn't show him playing the guitar, it just showed him burn it. And to go back a little bit, what happened was I was the youngest in my family. I had an older brother and older sister. And they were all very good musicians. And my mother sang in a choir and a jazz band and stuff like that. My uncle was an opera singer. You know, a lot of people were involved with that in my family. And obviously they wanted me to do something as well. So they gave me guitars and they gave me everything. On my 5th birthday, I got a guitar. On my 6th birthday, I got a trumpet. So I took lessons for trumpet and piano and stuff like that. But I never took guitar lessons. So anyway, so I had a guitar. 2 years later, September 18th, 1970, they showed on the news, today Jimi Hendrix died. And they showed him burn his guitar from Monterey Park. That's it. No music. So the revelation, the impact it had on me was that, wow, that's cool. I want to burn the guitar, you know. So that's why I started playing that same moment. I took the guitar off the wall and I started playing until the string broke. And I kept on going until the string broke again. And there were no more strings. And then I got a new set of strings. And my brother taught me how to tune it. And on it went. And yeah, that's what made me want to play the guitar in order to, you know, I figure you got to learn to play a little bit before you burn it. You know. What I decided to do when I started burning my guitars was instead of using the lighter fluid, I would use a mixture of potassium nitrate and sugar. And it goes off like a volcano. Nowadays they don't let me do that anymore, but I used to do quite often.
So you're playing rock guitar and you're playing rock and roll, I guess, like other kids played rock and roll. And then you heard this guy Gideon Kramer play some Paganini?
Yeah, once again, that's I have to explain a little more. What happened was, on my 8th birthday, my older sister, Anne-Louise, God bless her, she gave me an album, which became my only album, and it was Deep Purple Fireball. And those of you who don't know how that record starts, it starts with just double bass drums. And it was crazy. I mean, I was going, my God. And that became like my Bible, basically. And I saved up some money and I bought it in rock record and then eventually made Japan. So I learned all that stuff and I became very, into that band and Blackmore and stuff like that. But then I realized that there has to be some more. So I started listening a lot to my mother's Bach records and Vivaldi and Beethoven. And I started infusing a lot of classical elements into my rock sound through the Marshalls, of course. And then that became a very big impact, as far as chord progressions and stuff like that. And also my older sister listened to the Gabriel Genesis records, which Tony Banks did a lot of these inverted chord progressions and stuff like that. I picked up on. And that was great. I thought that was really good to like involve a little more interesting melodies to the hard sound. Because all hard rock, I felt, or I'm pretty sure, was very pentatonic blues based. Which is great, but I wanted to go more in the more harmonic minors and diminished and phrygians and stuff like this. Then just about that time, I watched TV again. There was only two TV channels in Sweden, so when you got to watch it, you kind of watched it, attentively. And it was a performance by a Russian violinist that was playing a cappella violin that I couldn't believe my ears. I couldn't just believe it. I was going, what is this? And I found out it was Paganini's 24 Capriccios, which is the most advanced classical violin piece. It's written by Niccolo Paganini in the 19th century. And so I picked that up and I started listening to that a lot, and that's how I developed a lot of my arpeggios and linear scales. And so my biggest influence on my guitar playing is actually violin. Yeah, but I kept that hard edge that I felt from that day when I got the Purple Fireball and in rock records, and that till this day I can put that on. I think is still great, really hard stuff.
You must have been kind of in a league of your own. You're in Stockholm. You're 15 or 16 or 17 years old. But you need to get a drummer. You need a bass player. How could you find someone that's on that same level?
It's a funny thing because just last summer I was doing a show in Stockholm, and my grade school teacher turned up from a 3rd grade. And she had kept all my drawings. I was drawing a lot. And one of the drawings was a poster I've drawn from a show when I was 11 years old. A little show that I put on in my school. It was, track on earth, rock and roll, whatever. Something I drew and put. So that was 30 years ago. And so I put together little groups around me from the very beginning. I figured, I can't just by myself, So I started like really early with bands, bands, 10, 11 years old and stuff like that. And then I moved into, we had a house in the suburbs, but in city, Stockholm, my uncle had built a studio in the 50s. And so I inherited that. And put together more proper stuff, and hence I formed groups around myself mainly with a bass player and a drummer, and I would be the singer, lead guitar player, and we recorded a lot and made a lot of demos and stuff. That became Rising Force, and I had a lot of different lineups. But until I left for America, that's what I was doing. My style was very different. The only other bands that were around towards the end of that era was a band that later became Europe, and they were more, in the normal vein, whereas I was going a little more crazy, neoclassical, very, very heavy stuff, but at the same time also very, I liked the early, ELP and Genesis and progressive rock too. So I infused a lot of that, a little more advanced, more adventurous.
So, was it that you were so different that it would have been difficult to get a record deal, or did that come quite easy?
Well, in Sweden, it wouldn't really matter at the time, in the late 70s. In the late 70s in Sweden, it wasn't a good market for rock, And I would always dream about going to England or something, and I would buy Sounds and Melody Maker, on the train. I was read, Kerrang wasn't even out. Didn't even exist, This is long before. This is like New Musical Express, Sounds, Melody Maker. I would buy those, and I would look, and I was thinking maybe I could do something there, because I recorded a lot of stuff, and I did get some place with it, because I got won some awards, free studio time, and then actually CBS got interested for a short while, but that kind of didn't happen, But I was, it wasn't until later on Sweden became more of a rock place.
So where were you resident when you made Rising Force?
Oh, it's Stockholm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I grew up there. I was born and raised in Stockholm. Although, about 10 miles outside I had a house. We lived in my mother's house. But my grandmother had a big building in the city, so I would spend a lot of time there. And... it was mainly, it was right there in the city, south side of Stockholm. And but eventually, I sent tapes out to actually, I bought another every day I would buy these magazines in the newsstands, and one of them just came out called the Guitar Player magazine, which was American. And all of a sudden, I saw this thing. It says, "Send your tape in, we'll put you in the spotlight column." And I'm like, "Wow, cool. That's never going to happen, but why not?" So I did, and believe it or not, it did happen. They did put me in it, and they called me up and said, "Whoa, man, you got to come over and record here in the States." And see what happened in Sweden. I had all these groups that I, put around myself. One was called Powerhouse, and one was called Rising, and then it became Rising Force, which was a power trio, which is me, drummer, and a bass player. And we did a lot of recording, but it never was albums, yeah. And I played around town and stuff in some festivals. Wood Stockholm was one of them. It was very cool, and that was the biggest one I did. And so then that happened. I got the offer to join the band Steeler in the States. So I left all that behind, and I went to the States to record with Steeler, and eventually with Alcatraz. And then when I was with Alcatraz, we went to Japan. And in Japan, they offered me a solo deal, and I called that Rising Force. So that became, quite successful, the Grammys and everything like that. But it was two different kind of things,
Yeah.
I guess the rising force thing was sort of like my thing, no matter what, if I did it there or here or whatever.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about guitar playing now. And I guess the first thing is, do you still practice? How does that work? What's your daily routine?
I never practiced, ever. You know, I know it sounds funny, but I never did, because practicing entails repetition, and I never did that. But I did play a lot. And I played, I'm talking hours and hours and hours. I would play on the train, I would play on the bus, I would play in my studio, I would play in my house, fall asleep with the guitar, wake up with the guitar, for years, many years. But it wasn't practicing, it was just playing and improvising and coming up with new stuff. And I did that for many years. And it really doesn't go a day without me playing. I do play all the time, you know. But I concentrate more on composition and recording.
Do you use an acoustic for that?
No, mostly electric. I play acoustic too, you know.
Your legendary, fast speed of guitar playing. Do you use some kind of finger thing to keep those supple, to keep that style?
No, I never did anything like that. I never did any exercises or anything like that, as far as the speed. There's a really funny thing that will happen. For a long time, I was still staying with my mom, but I would go into the city every day to record in that studio that my uncle had built. And the cassette recorder in the studio would run a little bit slower than the one at home. I'm talking just a little bit slower. So I would record every day, and I had this philosophy that whatever I do today has to be better than I did yesterday. I had every day. It's not like, oh, maybe tomorrow. No. Today I got to be better than I was yesterday. And by better, that means faster and cleaner and more difficult stuff. I had this crazy idea that there was no limit to all that. So what happened was that I would listen to, before I went back to sitting on the tube, I would listen to what I did the day before, and I would go, that's pretty fast. That's pretty good. Well, you got to top that. So every day, little small increments, like it went faster and faster and faster, And I thought it was maybe the guitar got out of tune because it was cold outside, because I was carrying on a train, whatever. So crazy, funnily enough, that's one of the reasons. And also that I would always have this philosophy that, if you can't play it perfectly clean and with accuracy, don't play it. So it was a combination of playing it very, articulate and slightly faster, slightly faster. It was pretty nuts.
Do you feel under any pressure though from fans now who want you to go faster and faster and faster? Is there?
Yeah, but see fast is not necessarily better. You see, if you don't play fast, if you don't play, whatever you play, it has to be something that has substance, and whether it's fast or not, that's secondary. But if it is fast and it has substance and it's played accurately, then it's okay. And that's something I learned also from Paganini, because if you listen to the 24 Capriccious, you have a lot of movements where it's just like long notes like this, and then flurry of notes, very strong impact. So, I think it's dangerous to think that playing fast all the time is good, I know that a lot of people say that I do that, but I don't, actually, if you listen closely.
So the music has to come first, really.
Well, the melody, the melody. Like to quote Mozart, melody is music, music is melody.
When did the love affair with Fender Strat start?
Well, it's originated with seeing, obviously, Hendrix and Blackmore playing the Strat, and also that, that I felt that, there couldn't possibly be a better one, if there is, I've never seen it. So that became like the one I wanted. And then for years and years and years, of course, it took me a while before I could get proper one, yeah. Because they were quite expensive back then. Still are, I think. But now, of course, so many years later, this is like a part of me now. It's just, I couldn't imagine playing anything else, In fact, there's a little funny little story about that too.